Hilchos Ishus Perek Shmini, the laws of marriage, chapter 8. We continue to talk about Kiddushin, a man making a formal acquisition to acquire a woman. But today the topic is Kiddushei Ta'ut, which means Kiddushin that were made on a mistaken assumption that was later revealed to be untrue. Maybe it's a little bit political, but we're going to show a little meme, just because the Talmud says that you have to have a little laugh before you eat, before you learn, and then we can learn seriously. So you have what we ordered and what we got, yes? Sometimes you make an order, and what the order is, you don't exactly get the order. So, it says the Rambam, let's see a bunch of examples. Halacha Aleph, ha'omer li isha. One who tells a woman, hareyat mikudeshes li b'koy zeh shel yayin. I am consecrating you with this cup of wine. She takes the cup, v'nimtza shel dvash. Oops, turns out it's honey. Shel dvash, he gives her the cup, he says, I'm consecrating you with this cup of honey. Oof. With this cup of honey, v'nimtza shel yayin, and it turns out that it's wine. Or he says, b'dinar zeh shel kesef. Here, I'm consecrating you with this coin of silver. V'nimtza shel zahav, turns out it's gold. Shel zahav, v'nimtza shel kesef. It's a gold coin, turns out it's silver. That's money. What about pedigree? Yichus. Al menas shani koyin v'nimtza levi. I'm marrying you on condition that I'm a Kohen. Turns out he's a Levi. Levi v'nimtza koyin. Or he says, I'm a Levi. Turns out he's actually a Kohen. Nasin v'nimtza mamzer. He says, listen, I'm marrying you on condition that I am a Nasin. A Nasin is a nation called the Givonim. They tricked the Jewish people into accepting them into their people. And when the trick was revealed, the Jewish people decided to keep them because they converted, but to give them lower status. They became like slaves. So it's not the biggest level of yichus, but let's say the guy says, listen, I'm being transparent with you. I am a nasin. That's the kind of guy I am. But it actually turns out that he's a mamzer. A mamzer is an illegitimate child who's actually forbidden to marry Jewish, a regular Jew. Mamzer v'nimtza nasin, or he says, listen, I'm a mamzer, I'm an illegitimate child. I'm marrying you on that condition. And it turns out that he's actually not so bad. He's different than the mamzer. He's a nasin, just the nation that tricked the Jewish people. From that descent. Ben ir v'nimtza ben krach. I live in a regular metropolis, a regular big city. And it turns out that he is a member of a huge big city. Krach was a bigger city, tougher to live there. Ben krach v'nimtza ben ir. Or he says, listen, I live in a massive city, I'm from Manhattan. And it turns out that he's only from a regular suburban area. Al menas shani ani v'nimtza ashir. I'm giving you the money on condition that I'm a poor man. Turns out he's rich. Ashir v'nimtza ani. I'm rich. Turns out he's poor. Al menas shebeisi karev lamerchatz v'nimtza rachik v'nimtza karev. I'm consecrating you on condition that my house is close to the bathhouse. You won't have to walk so long to take a shower. Turns out it's far away. Or the opposite. He says it's far away. Turns out he's close. Al menas sheyesh li shivchai bas gedel esay oifa ve'ein loy. I'm giving you the money on condition that I have in my home already a slave woman or a daughter who will do hair braiding or baking. I'm going to marry you, I'm going to spoil you, you won't have to cook or bake. Ve'ein loy. Turns out he has no such daughter or no such maidservant. Al menas she'ein loy ve'yesh loy. On condition that I have no daughter, I have no servant. I need you to do all the housekeeping. Turns out he actually has a daughter or a slave woman. Al menas sheyesh li isha ubanim ve'ein loy. Al menas she'ein li ve'yesh loy. I have a wife and children already from a previous marriage. Turns out he doesn't. I don't have a previous wife and children. Turns out he does. B'chol elu v'chol adayim lehen eina mikudeshes. In all of these cases and anything similar to it, she's not consecrated. V'chein hi shehit atu. Same thing works if she would fool him. If she would promise to be something which she actually isn't. And the commentaries already in the Talmud discuss what's the reasoning for this law. Seemingly, if you go down a level, I understand. Guy says, I'm rich. Turns out he's poor. I get it. The other way around, what's wrong? You thought you're marrying a poor guy. You end up marrying a billionaire. No? What's the problem? Kohen Levi. Kohen is more important than a Levi. So the guy promises to be a Kohen, turned out to be a Levi. Fine, I get it. But if Levi promises to be a Kohen, why not?
But not coming with clean hands already.
So you're saying psychologically, that's an interesting observation. Psychologically, the woman says, listen, maybe now you're better for being a billionaire, but if I can't trust you with your word, then who knows what's going to happen in this marriage. It's an interesting thought. The Talmud says that there's a couple of levels. When it comes to, let's say, the first case, wine and honey, or silver and gold, there it's easy. Because there you could say, look, some people like wine, I like honey. Some people like gold, I like silver. But when it comes to pedigree, so the Talmud says on Yichus, on pedigree, the reason why a woman would refuse a better pedigree is because she says, Misana, derav mikarai lo ba'ina. That's the Aramaic words. A shoe that's bigger than my foot, I don't want. Maybe you're an important guy. Maybe you're a Cohen, big stuff. That's not for me. This is why the comic is there. My shoe size is not so big. Same can be said with a billionaire. Some people want to marry and live a simple life. I don't want a billionaire. I know what billionaire means. Billionaire means you're going to be at work all day. Billionaire means you're going to have meetings. Billionaire means you're going to, it's a whole different lifestyle. Right. This shoe is too big for my foot. So I don't want it. It says that Rambam halacha beis ubekulam in all the cases we mentioned before, afal pisha amra. Even if, after the fact, she says, listen, you know what? Belibi hayali hiskadish loy afal pisha hitani. Ve'ena davar kamaisha amar. I had in mind to become consecrated to him, even though he misled me, even though the matter isn't as he says. Or he says the same thing. I wanted to make her consecrated, even if she misleads me. It doesn't matter. No consecration. Very cardinal rule in halacha. Mental statements are not real statements. Verbally you said, you're becoming my wife because I'm giving you a silver coin, not a gold one. Verbally you said I'm a Kohen. Verbally you said I'm rich. If the opposite is revealed, doesn't matter what you're thinking. Mental statements are not real statements. The Rebbe asks a question because earlier in the Rambam we learned that if a man and woman were talking about marriage and then he just gives her a coin without saying anything, the assumption is that they're going to be married. So there is some kind of dvarim shebalev, there's some kind of a mental statement being allowed over there. And the Rebbe says he's not sure what defines when exactly we listen to them and when we don't. But definitely over here, we don't care about the dvarim shebalev, we only care about the words that were actually enunciated. At any rate, that's the basic law about misleading for kiddushin. What if the Rambam now says there's a little bit misleading, in the sense, not that what you said is completely untrue, but that what you said isn't the whole truth. So for example, Harayat mikudeshes li al menas shani basam, halacha gimel now. You're consecrated to me on condition that I am a perfumer. V'nimtza basam ubursi. It turns out he's both a perfumer and a leather craftsman. So he's more than what he said, not just not what he said. He promised and he came through on that promise, but he's also something else which may be unattractive. The Talmud says that people that worked with leather smelled a lot. There was a very unpleasant odor because they used to use animal feces in production of leather and leather tanning. So maybe the additional element is not so enticing. Al-Manas Shani ben Ir, v'nimtza ben Ir u ben krach. I promised to be a member of a suburban area. Turns out he has 2 homes, in a suburban area and in a metropolis. So now that extra addition might not be so enticing again. Al-Manas Shashmi Yosef, v'nimtza shma Yosef v'Shimon. I promise my name is Yosef. Turns out he has 2 names, Yosef Shimon. Harezu mikudeshes. In all of these cases, she is consecrated because what he promised was true. Aval im amarla, but if he words it in Hebrew, you can very much appreciate it. Al-Manas she'ein shmi ella Yosef. I'm marrying you on condition that my name is nothing more than Yosef, v'nimtza shma Yosef v'Shimon, and then he has 2 names, it turns out. Or he says, she'eini ella basam. I promise I'm nothing but a perfumer. V'nimtza basam ubursi. And it turns out that he is both a perfumer and a leather craftsman. She'eini ella ben Ir. I'm nothing but a member of a suburban area. V'nimtza ben krach u ben Ir. It turns out he is both a member of a metropolis and a regular suburban area. In that case, eina mikudeshes. In that case, she's not consecrated, even though seemingly it's a buy one, get one free situation over here, right? But nevertheless, not every buy one, get one free is good. Buy one, get one free of the same thing is good. Buy one, get a different thing free, maybe not necessarily after the other thing. It says that I'm a malacha dalid ha'omer le'isha. Let's talk about defining some terms. A man tells a woman, Harayat mikudeshes li al menas shani yodea likros. You are consecrated to me on condition that I know how to read. Now, likros in Hebrew has a very specific connotation. And therefore, what does it mean, says the Rambam in Halacha? Tzarich sheyikra ha-Torah v'yetargim oisa targum unkelus hager. The person must be fluent to read the entire Torah in the Torah scroll. He has to know how to read with no vowels, with no notes, know how to read it all, and know the translation of unkelus, the convert. In every chumash, if you open, you'll see on the side of the chumash is the Targum unkelus. Fascinating story. He was actually the grandson of a Roman general and ultimately converted and ended up converting many other Roman soldiers with him and became the primary commentator in terms of translation on the Torah. So much so that Jewish communities used to actually read the Torah on Shabbat, the Hebrew and then the Aramaic. In Taimani regions, they still do it till today. Kids would do the kids do the translations. So you have 12-year-old kids that know the entire Torah in Aramaic. When I was in Israel in yeshiva, there was a boy who had joined the Chabad yeshiva from a Taimani family, and he actually knew, he himself, 2014. This is not old, ancient stuff. 2014, he knew the Targum by heart of random portions in the Torah. So in those days, most people had this education. So if you promise to be a man who knows how to read, that's what you mean. I know how to read the entirety of the Torah with the translation. But if he told her, on condition that I am a reader is higher level fluency than just I know how to read. I'm a reader. What does it mean, I'm a reader? You have to be expert in reading the entirety of the Tanakh, all 24 books of the Tanakh, Torah, prophets, and the writings, with perfect grammar. What if a person says, I'm marrying you on condition that I know how to learn or how to read the Mishnah? Lishnot is a term for Mishnah. Very good. He has to be fluent in reading the entirety of the Mishnah. The Mishnah is the 63 tractates compiled by Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, the first time the oral Torah was ever written down. But if he says, I am a Tana means a sage of the Mishnah. I don't just know how to read Mishnah. I'm like a Mishnah man. A Mishnah man has more requirements. You have to know how to read, number one, the Mishnah, and all the legal Tanaic commentaries. V'sifra v'sifri, the two midrashes called Sifra and Sifri. There's a genre of Torah commentary that's called midrash, which is mostly homiletical, agada, commentary on the Torah. But Sifra and Sifri are a legal midrash. They're what's called midrash halacha. Sifra is a midrash on the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, and Sifri is on the book of Bamidbar and Dvarim. And again, it's a legal midrash, so it goes into the category of Mishnah. So if you declare yourself to be a sage of the Mishnah, a Mishnah man, you have to know how to read those too. V'toisefta shel Rabbi Chia, as well as what's called a Tosefta. It's printed in the back of every Talmud. They're basically a collection of teachings by the Tanaim that were not included in the Mishnah due to its brevity, but also help explain many of the principles in the Mishnah. So that's what it means. I know how to read, I'm a reader. I know how to learn Mishnah, I'm a Mishnah man. Hey, al-menas shani talmid. If a guy says, I'm marrying you on condition that I am a student. What was defined as a student? Ein oimrin ke ben Azai o ben Zoma. We don't require him to be like the great Torah sages known as Ben Azai and Ben Zoma. These were two people whose actual names were Shimon ben Azai and Shimon ben Zoma. Yet in the Talmud, they're never called by their first name because they never had smicha. They never got full rabbinic ordination. They were a talmid. They were essentially a student all their life. But they were the greatest of the great. Ben Azai, it says, went into the Pardes. He entered the orchard to study the most mystical secrets of the Torah. He was a Talmud. So if a guy says, I'm a Talmud, you don't have to be that high-level Talmud. All that's required is they should ask you a question on anything you're learning, and you know it. Even if what he knows right now is only the laws of holidays, which you usually teach the public, easy stuff, before the holiday. So that everybody should be expert in them. Even if at least he has one area of Jewish law, even if it's an easy area where he's expert, he qualifies as a Talmud, as a student. But if a guy says, I am a sage, a wise man, again, we don't set the bar at the highest standard. You don't have to be a sage like Rabbi Akiva or his friends. As long as you can be asked a matter of wisdom in any place and you can answer, you're good. I am a strong man. You don't have to be as strong as Avner ben Ner, who was the Shaul HaMelech's general, or Yoav, who was David HaMelech's general. As long as you have friends that fear you, because of how strong you are, you're a strong man. If a guy promises to be a rich man, the requirement is not, again, the highest bar. Rabbi Elazar ben Charsim, it is said that every year he used to give 12,000 cows. These are all cows over here in this picture. 12,000 cows as his ma'aser. Every year you have to give a tenth of all your animals that are born that year. His tithe was 12,000 calves, which means that in his flock there were 120,000 new calves born every year. This guy was rich beyond. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was also super rich. You don't have to be as rich as that. As long as you're honored in your community for being rich, you're rich. And here comes a fascinating halacha that Rebbe would quote this all the time. If somebody promises, I am a righteous man, afilu rasha gamur, even if in practicality he is a complete wicked man, harezu mikudeshes misafik. There's a doubt she might be actually married. Shema hirher tshuva belibai. Because maybe in the moment that he gave the coin, he had a thought of repentance, and a thought of repentance makes you a halachic penitent. On the flip side, it also goes badly. Al menashani rasha, a person says, I promise I'm a wicked man, afilu tzadi gamur, even if he's actually a righteous man, harezu mikudeshes only misafik. Out of doubt, she is consecrated. Shema hirher b'avodas kechavim umazal is belibai, because maybe he had a thought of idolatry. Idolatry is one of the only transgressions that you can transgress in your thought. Usually you have to do something. But with Avodah Zarah, we saw in the first book of the Rambam that even in your heart, thinking about idol worship is wrong and can make you into a rasha. The sin of idolatry is very great. The moment you contemplate serving in your heart, you become a wicked man. Shenemar, as it says, every day in the Shema we say this, Pen yifta levavchem. What does it say? Be careful lest your heart go astray. In other words, Avodah Zarah is a matter of the heart. The Kosuv, it also says in Yechezkel, Leman tfois as Beis Yisrael belibam. I want to catch the Jewish people on matters of the heart. The fact that the verse continues, Asher nazeru mi'alai begiluleihem kulam. They went astray from me with their disgusting idols. So you see that idol worship is related to the heart. And therefore, if a person promises to be a rasha, he may actually be one by thinking about idolatry. But the positive side is the main one that Rebbe would always talk about. A person with one thought can turn his character from being a complete rasha to being a complete tzaddik. Now, all of the cases until now were cases where you verbally expressed something. What if you actually just mentally assumed something? Vav, hamekadesh asa isha. A man consecrates a woman. The Amar, and after the marriage he says, you know what? Hayisi savur shehi koyanes, v'harei levia. I thought she was a daughter of a Kohen. Turns out she's only a Levi. Levia v'harei koyanes. I thought she was a Levi daughter. Now she's a Kohen's daughter. Aniya v'harei ashira, ashira v'harei aniya. I thought she was rich. Poor she was rich, rich she was poor. Harezu mikudeshes. She is consecrated mipnei shelo hitatu, because she did not mislead him. As the meme says, you thought wrong, dude. You thought wrong. V'chein hisha amra. If she says later, Svura hayisi shayhu kayin vareu Levi. I thought he was a Kohen. Turns out he's a Levi. Levi vareu kayin. Asher vareu ani. Ani vareu asher. I thought he's rich. Turns out he's poor. Poor. I thought he's rich. Harezu mikudeshes. In the end, she's consecrated mipnei shelo hita isa, because he didn't mislead her. Active misleading cancels the kiddushin. Wrong assumptions, that's your bad. The kiddushin is actually fully in effect.